Okay, so give me a thumbs up if you see the slides. Okay. Um, Paul Rogalis, that was not a thumbs up. That was just a nod. And the thing about you, Paul Rogalis, is that my screen only picks a random couple of people to look at. So that's you, Paul Rogalis, which means you better look interested during this entire session. Just kidding. Okay, so you'll see there the hashtag if you are interested in using Twitter. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat. We're going to start with this question, which directly ties to Anne's presentation. Who are we, the people who are putting this together? Or who the hell are we, like, to be running this session? What is going on? Because I will tell you that what we know about fall contingency planning is exactly what you know, which means if you think you're going to come away from this session with some information about what's going to happen in fall, I hate to disappoint you. Literally the only information I have is what Anne just said and what you've all seen in emails. So we're not really here to say what you should do for fall. And I can only imagine that the participants are like now dropping. So really what we're here to talk about today is designing for contingency. So we're particularly looking at courses and teaching and offering you some ideas about what you might do this summer. Now, you know, amen to a professional development 5-week course, although some of you are like, dear God, it's really important that you see this slide. It's very dense and full of information. And in addition to saying we really don't know anything, it also, I want to foreground that what we're going to offer to you today is a framework for making decisions about how you spend your precious summer hours. We're going to aim towards the less is more approach, both in time and in sort of design philosophy. So we're here to offer you tools for approaching the work of preparing for an uncertain fall, which means you still are going to do the major work of deciding what you're going to do with your classes and how you're going to navigate this uncertainty. But I think some of what we offer you both today and tomorrow may be helpful. And I certainly learned stuff putting this together. So I'm hoping that not all of it is like, yeah, that's obvious, that's obvious. Really what we are is process oriented. So we are about your planning process, giving you ideas, talking through solutions. And what we don't offer is the solution to the big challenge that we all have in front of us. So the framework that we are working in is one that we developed in the collab, and we've been calling it the ACE framework, which is a little distressing because we already had the ACE career program, which some of you were actually part of, and the ACE career program that we ran out of the collab with Katie Gable from Career Services is much beloved. So we have co-opted your special acronym, and I'm sorry for that, but it had to be done. The ACE framework, and again, you should not really need to take many notes during this presentation because we will be providing this to you in more formats than you could ever want after this presentation. But we're focusing on 3 sort of guiding principles for design for contingency planning, and those are adaptability, connection, and equity. So I want to say a couple things about this framework. The first is that it does not replace the pedagogical framework that we've been working on in the collab recently, which is cluster learning. Cluster learning is the pedagogical orientation that we've been developing institutionally for Plymouth State, and that's all still in place exactly as it was. This framework is designed specifically for COVID-19 remote teaching contingency plans. So we're using this to help us deal with a little bit summer, but particularly fall and maybe next spring. And we're hoping that the things that we are identifying in the ACE framework, none of them are throwaways, meaning all of them, if we do them well, could assist us after COVID-19 as well. So we're trying to make this that if you invest time and work into the summer, that would help you even when we're back to traditional face-to-face teaching and everything, and everybody's healthy and safe again. So you'll see that the way ACE works is that we've got these guiding categories at the top, and then along the side, we've got 3 levels of engagement so that we can look at adaptability at the assignment level, the course level, and the institution level. During today and tomorrow, we will be focusing mainly on the top 2 levels of this grid. So we'll be talking to you mainly about what you might think about with your assignments and your courses. In terms of the Plymouth State institutional response, the CoLab through today and tomorrow are going to be collecting institutional advocacy ideas. So if you see something emerge and we say, gosh, we really need Plymouth State or USNH to step up and deal with A, B, C, we will pass those along to the administrative units or the teams that manage those areas and ask for the institution to also do its part to help us deal with some of the issues we have to deal with. But we as primarily faculty today are going to be looking at assignment and course level implementation of ACE. Inside that ACE framework, we have what we're calling ACE-informed practices. You'll see there's only 2 in each category. This is not because there's only 2 things that we could do at the assignment level to be adaptable. It's because the CoLab is using a model that we call the rule of 2s, which is basically, instead of giving you 7 billion things, we just pick 2 that we think would be a really good place to start so that it's not overwhelming. You may decide only one of them is helpful to you. You may also decide that you like a different 2, and that's fine. What we're really going to be focusing on is giving you the practical pieces that fill in this chart, but also allowing you to change up this chart with different practices that are informed by the framework if they work better for your discipline. Some of this just seems confusing right now. I'm sure it's going to get less confusing as we go. You will see the link on the bottom of this slide. I'm not going to go to it now, and I suggest you don't go to it now. But that link will take you to a really cool interactive chart that Martha built, where you can click on something like flexible deadlines, which is probably not a confusing one, but you might click on something like open tools and say, you know, what is that? If you click on it, our website will give you a little skeletal description of what that ACE-informed practice is, so that website's more interactive and has a little bit more information. The final thing I want to say about ACE before we start is that the CoLab is going to be building a curriculum to match this framework. So by mid-June, and potentially a little bit earlier, but I will let you know, we'd be taking Monday and Tuesday off, people, so don't ask for anything on Monday and Tuesday. But after a couple days off, we're going to get back into it. We're going to be putting together a curriculum that goes with that framework, so that in addition to getting the description of these practices, you'll be able to get, as Anne described, some small modules, so that if you decide, gosh, I really don't know what you're talking about here and I don't have any idea how to do it, we're gonna, in a rule of 2s kind of way, break that down to something simple, give you some practice ideas, some examples of how they work in courses, and you can work through that at your own pace according to the things that interest you. So today and tomorrow are synchronous professional development opportunities at the worst possible time for faculty. We get that. You're on contract, so we're offering them to you now. But we know that you'll want to play with this stuff later when you really start thinking about your fall stuff, which I just can't imagine anybody's doing right now. So no worries about that coming later. I'm going to highlight on the framework here a couple of things that we're specifically going to look at in today's session. So first of all, you'll see over under adaptability at the course level. I forgot one thing that I want to say. Why adaptability, connection, and equity? First of all, you're saying, well, because they're good, right? Yeah, they're good. But why these 3 in particular? Because there's lots of guiding principles that we could have selected, and I want to assure you that these were not random. So here's where they came from. Adaptability came from the fact that the major issue we're dealing with for fall is uncertainty. So we know that whatever we build up until the last minute is going to have to be something that is more flexible than maybe we're used to building for our courses, especially in what we call modality, right? Which is whether something is going to be delivered online, face-to-face, hybrid. So we knew that whatever we did for contingency planning, we had to focus on adaptability. The second piece we selected was connection. So you may know some online colleges that might be just down Route 93 from Plymouth State really focus on the kinds of online learning that are very individualized. People move at their own pace lots of times. They're what we call competency-based models. Once you finish a competency, you move on to the next one. But because they are so individualized, oftentimes they're very content-based and they're very non-collaborative a lot, right? There's a little bit less group work, there are less projects, people are just moving through curriculum, and that works really well for certain kinds of learners, especially adult learners, especially for things like retraining and upskilling, all those kinds of things. But the Plymouth State curriculum has really, especially over the last couple of years, suggested itself to be about connection. We have connection between faculty and students. We have collaborative work, group work, engaged projects with our communities. What happens when we try to move all that online? Lots of you probably noticed during the spring that one of the things we lost most quickly and most distressingly was connection. And we worked harder on that than on anything else. If I can just stay connected, my students can stay connected, and I can give them community. So we really wanted to design a contingency plan that would foreground connection. And finally, equity. The other thing that we heard in all the responses that you sent back to us for today about how remote teaching was going is that you really struggled with students and in some cases with yourselves, with faculty, with our contingent faculty in particular, who suddenly found themselves with their lives much more precarious, worried about health issues, worried about food insecurity, worried about internet connections, lack of connected devices like laptops. What are we going to do if we change up a whole bunch of things for fall to ensure that we're not leaving our most vulnerable learners and even some of our own faculty behind? So that's where the ACE framework came from. And today, in today's session, we're going to look particularly at two course level modules aimed at adaptability. So we're going to look at high flex design and module based scheduling and explain how some of the principles of those design approaches could help you for fall. The other thing that we wanted to do is really put in the front end, instead of in a workshop tomorrow, you know, there's a million of them, we wanted to put right up front the basic needs stuff and explain to you why we want to build a framework that puts basic needs, things like internet connections and food and housing and health, right at the front of our model.